Bridesmaids/groomsmen of Reddit, what's the most ridiculous request you had to endure for the couple's big day? I was supposed to be a bridesmaid in a wedding of a male friend. I had tried to befriend the bride because the groom was a childhood friend. All of the planning leading up to the big day was a total show, and she used our wedding chat to constantly discuss all of her problems with the groom. Ring was too small, they never talked about finances before getting engaged, and now she's not sure he makes enough. Can you get a prenup for children you don't have yet? Constantly telling us we were bad friends. Keep in mind we are all friends with the groom for many years before she was in the picture. I could write a novel about it. The final straw for me was when she asked me to plan a bachelorette party, but couldn't tell me anything about what she was interested in doing, clubbing vs spa day vs beach trip etc., other than nothing too wild, but definitely cost effective, and when I presented her with a plan, told me I was a terrible friend and that was the worst bachelorette plan she had ever seen. I was replaced as a bridesmaid, did not attend the wedding, and do not speak to either of them anymore. Years ago, I was part of a wedding where the bride was actually fairly reasonable considering. Her biological father showed up very drunk. The preacher got sick, so a substitute was made at the last minute who didn't have his together. There was a storm that knocked out all the power to the church, and it was pouring outside. Her aunt and mother-in-law were old rivals who fought about some 30-year-old thing the entire time. Despite specifying no children, several people brought small kids anyway. 2 relatives wore white with veils in the audience. They were just hats, but still. The catering company was going to be late due to the storm. Cell reception only worked outside the church in the pouring rain. But the groom was the one who lost his. He insisted on a Scottish-themed wedding of sorts, but it wasn't authentic Scottish, more like a fantasy in his head about Braveheart or some such thing. Some of the groomsmen apparently refused to wear a dress, tartans, so he threw them out of the wedding only hours before, including his best man. He switched his best man to his soon-to-be brother-in-law, who had a mohawk and face piercings. This 17YOBIL was petty-stoked, but not taking it very seriously, and goofing around with a decorative sword until, inevitably, he accidentally hit the bride in the back of the head. She said she was fine, that she was hit with the flat of the blade. Even without the power, there was enough light from all of the windows in the small stone church so that you could see everything. And what you couldn't see was decorated by lit candles. But the groom was incredibly surly through the whole process, especially when it was discovered that the rings were still with the groomsmen who had already left after being thrown out. So the 17-year-old brother-in-law actually had rings on his hand, and loaned 2 of them to the bride and groom. When the ceremony was over, they ran down the aisles to open the door in the pouring rain, only to find out that the limousine was missing. A few days later, we found out that the groomsmen had actually convinced the limo driver to drive them back to the nearby hotel, and due to a miscommunication, the limo driver thought that was all he had to do for that day. Luckily, somebody had a Buick that could fit the bride's dress. While waiting to have the Buick cleared out, somebody realized that the back of her wedding dress was stained with a hefty amount of blood. It turned out that being whacked by the sword and actually cut into the back of her scalp, and like most head wounds, even superficial ones bleed extensively. Shortly after the bride and groom went back to the hotel, she got patched up, and only the back of the dress was ruined. The photos were from the front. They tried to make light of all of the rain, but it was really apparent that the bride was starting to wear down. Their photos looked terrible. The groom was grimacing, the best man was around, and the bride looked tired. In addition, all the added stress was making everybody else fighting, the children who are not supposed to be there, we are all crying and being bratty, and there was no food to be had because the catering was still stuck somewhere because of the storm. The hotel that they were at, which was a small and rather quaint small-town hotel, comped them all free food, mostly because their power was out in the kitchen, and it would have gone bad anyway. That night, the honeymoon night, the bride and groom had such a big fight with one another, that the bride actually packed her stuff, and her maid of honor drove her back to her house where she spent the night there. The next morning, she came back, and everyone just kind of blamed it on her head wound. The marriage ended 3 years later. But not just because of the bride and groom were fighting, but the groom ended sleeping with that brother-in-law and came out of the closet. In college I was a best man for a wedding where the bride demanded we all wear designer suits. I had to sell a guitar to afford just the rental. I had no money before, and after I had no money and one less guitar. Then at the reception the groom pulled me aside and told me it was my job as best man to make sure their marriage went well. I was supposed to check in and help them with marriage stuff to make sure they didn't get divorced. I looked him in the eye and said I can't be responsible for your marriage. He didn't talk to me from that second until just a couple months ago. 6 years after his wedding. My college roommate invited me to his wedding in Vegas. I live in Colorado, so attending this wedding already required me to travel and pay for a hotel. The invitation specified that the group should book their reservation at Aria under a certain group code to receive a discounted rate. Their discounted room rate at Aria is over $300/night. When I told him I simply could not afford to pay for round-trip flights and a hotel room for 3 nights at $300/night, he flipped his. He said that we all needed to be in the same hotel for ease of plans or some like that. He expected me, a then 24-year-old female, to come out to his wedding in Vegas alone and pay over $300/night for accommodations. The kicker? He did not even give me a +1. I later found out that the groom was so pushy about everyone staying at Aria because the bride and groom received a free hotel room if 7 hotel rooms were booked under their discount code. It was really scummy of them to pressure their friends into booking expensive hotel rooms at their destination wedding and lie about the reasoning. Anyway, the bachelor party is scheduled for the night before the wedding. The groomsmen had put a lot of effort into planning an awesome bachelor party and they had pre-purchased tickets for everything. Well, the groom is simply a no-show for his own bachelor party. So I got to attend the bachelor party in the groom's absence, which was pretty awesome. We had a blast. Also, the night after the wedding the bride was kicked out of the Britney Spears concert for trying to climb on the stage. I can include the group text screenshots for that whole fiasco if anyone is interested. Gladly. Relevant context: the wedding party had purchased Britney Spears concert tickets for the night after the wedding. I did not want to pay for a hotel room for an extra night and buy a $200 concert ticket for an artist I do not care about, so I decided to leave a day earlier than everyone else and not attend. Even though I was already home, the wedding party still used the same group chat, so I had the pleasure of watching this drama unfold from the comfort of my couch 1,000 miles away from Vegas. Enjoy! I talked with a friend that was at the concert, and he said the bride was wasted beyond belief before the concert even started. He said that she tried to climb on the stage multiple times and received many kind warnings before a cop pulled her aside. When she was pulled aside she was so drunk she could not stand up or give basic information such as her name or birthday. He also said that the groom was being super confrontational and inappropriate with the cop. Apparently the aunt swooped in and managed to prevent the bride from being taken to detox and the groom from being arrested for a police officer. My favorite part of the text message thread is the bride saying, "All I need is support, guys." The next morning. Edit: thanks for the gold. Got asked to stand up for a wedding during culinary school for a high school friend. She said she didn't want us to buy presents, but wanted us to help with various wedding things since it was a backyard wedding, like someone help with the flowers, another do favors, table setting, etc. She wanted to know if I could help with dinner. I said sure, and asked her what she wanted help with, figuring it was prep work for someone else to do. No, she wanted me to handle the whole dinner. As in cooking for 200 people, as a 19-year-old having only done a year culinary school. She also wanted me to help pay for the food I'd be making, as their gift. She wanted me to make Caesar salad, potatoes au gratin, and roast enough ducks for 200, by myself, and pay for about half of it. I was learning how to be a pastry chef. I explained and she just stared at me blankly. I told her I could do the cake easily enough, but she insisted she wanted a real cake, from a bakery. I told her there wasn't any feasible way I could do it, not only because that's crazy, but because I literally wasn't trained to do it, and I got disinvited from the wedding. They apparently served bagged salad, boxed potatoes, and broasted chicken from Walmart.